David Shaw here with another off-the-record story. If you want to learn more about Washington, D.C., come visit my site, offtherecordtours.com. Let's go. In a previous episode, we looked at some famous actors buried here at Arlington Cemetery. Today, let's talk about some famous authors.
In an old house in Paris that was covered with vines lived 12 little girls in 2 straight lines.
Those lines, read to so many children, are from the beloved Madeline books written by Ludwig Bemelmans. Born in 1898 in what is now Italy, Bemelmans was a rather incorrigible child. After getting into trouble one too many times, he was given the choice of going to reform school or immigrating to America where his father was. He chooses America. When he arrived, he spent several years working as a waiter. In 1917, he joined the army, but was not sent to Europe because of his German origins. He was promoted to second lieutenant and wrote a book about army life. He tried his hand at drawing and writing with no success until 1939, when he published his first Madeline book. It was such a great hit, he didn't write another one until 1953. If you want to see something other than Madeline and her friends, go to Bemelmans' Bar in the Carlisle Hotel in New York City. His mural, Central Park, is his only artwork on public display. He was 64 when he dies. He's buried here, amongst many straight lines. The New York Times called Dashiell Hammett the dean of the school of hard-boiled detective fiction. Hammett actually worked for a few years as a private eye, and that gave him the great ideas that led him to be one of the great mystery writers of his time. He created such well-known characters as Sam Spade in The Maltese Falcon and Nick and Nora Charles from The Thin Man. Both books were made into movies. Hammett joins the Army in 1918. He served in the Motor Ambulance Corps, but spent most of World War I in the hospital. He signs up again after Pearl Harbor, and at age 48, worked as a cryptanalyst in the Aleutian Islands. He was a strong anti-fascist in the 1930s and was a supporter of progressive causes all his life. Hammett was blacklisted as a suspected communist during the Cold War, and he served 6 months in jail for refusing to divulge the names of those who helped fund an activist group. Years of heavy drinking and smoking worsened the tuberculosis he contracted in World War I and the emphysema he developed in World War II. The last 4 years of his life, he was cared for by his partner, the playwright Lillian Hellman. He dies at 66 years of age. There's another great mystery writer here, Mary Roberts Rinehart. She's known as the American Agatha Christie, and in her book, The Door, she's the first one to come up with the plot device, "The butler did it." She was born in what is now Pittsburgh during the country's centennial. She studied at the Pittsburgh Training School for Nurses and worked in a Pittsburgh hospital. She described the experience as all the tragedy of the world under one roof. When the stock market crashed in 1903, Rinehart and her husband, a physician, lost everything. To earn money, she started writing. After success with short stories, she wrote her first novel, The Circular Staircase, in 1907. It sold 1.25 million copies and made her famous. She went on to be a war correspondent for the Saturday Evening Post at the Belgium front during World War I and interviewed Albert I of Belgium, Winston Churchill, and Queen Mary of England. Rinehart suffered from breast cancer. She had a mastectomy, and she wrote about the experience in the Ladies' Home Journal, and she encouraged all women to have breast examinations. And this is at a time where this issue is not discussed at all. Rinehart was 83 at the time of her death in 1958. Her books had sold 10 million copies. Her husband was an Army officer. and he's buried with her here at Arlington National Cemetery. Well, I hope you enjoyed that off-the-record story. If you want to learn more about Washington, D.C., things seen and unseen, arrange your tour of your nation's capital at offtherecordtours.com. Until then, I'm David Shaw.